I've got a rational expression here. I want to know where it's positive. So I'm just going to think about the graph of this thing. I want to know where are the vertical asymptotes, and then are there any x-intercepts? And those are the main places where I'm going to break the graph up into pieces. So I see I've got vertical asymptotes at x equals 2 and x equals -1. And then what about x-intercepts? So where would the y value be equal to 0? Well, if that fraction is equal to 0, that means the numerator has to be 0. So if x minus 5 is 0, then x has to be 5. That's the only x-intercept. So now I have my graph broken up into pieces. These are the only pieces that I care about. Now I'm going to pick an x value from each piece and see if y is positive or negative. So on the left-hand side, I just plugged in x equals -2. And when you multiply out everything, you get 3 negatives. So altogether, the y value is negative there. So that whole piece of the graph will not be in my solution because the y values are negative there instead of positive. Now I'll plug in 0 for the second piece, x equals 0. That gives me 2 negatives in my y value. So negative divided by negative is positive. That means that whole piece is going to be in my solution. That whole piece from x equals -1 to x equals 2 has to be in our solution now. For the third piece, I'll plug in x equals 3. And then my y value will have a negative on top and 2 positives on bottom. So altogether, negative divided by positive gives me a negative. So the y values in that piece are negative. That means I know what the sketch looks like. It's got a vertical asymptote at x equals 2, and the y values are negative, so they're coming up to y equals 0 at x equals 5. Now let's just make sure that it really crosses through the x-axis there. So let's plug in x equals 6. We get a positive on top, positive on bottom. Positive divided by positive is positive. So the y values to the right of x equals 5 will all be positive. So that whole piece has to also be in our solution. So now, if I sketch this on a number line, I've got 2 pieces. First piece goes from -1 to +2. I don't include -1 or +2 because I have asymptotes there. Y is not equal to 0 at either one of those x values. But for my right-hand piece, y is equal to 0 at 5, so I will include 5. So I'll do open circle around -1 and 2, and closed circle around 5. And then I need everything to the right of 5. So when I write this in interval notation, I use the union symbol to connect the 2 pieces. I need open parentheses around, I need parentheses on -1 and 2, and I need a bracket on 5.